this really a German PzH 2000 or a studio apartment on tracks? Because this artilleryman looks way too comfy. He's literally loading a 155mm shell while wearing slippers. But don't rush to laugh just yet. This monster howitzer is created for some serious damage.
10 секунд. Це її...
It can fire 3 rounds in 10 seconds. That's its max rate of fire, and that's really fast. However, there's a catch. This German howitzer was never tested in wars where artillery is needed 24/7. So how well can the Panzerhaubitze handle the brutal demands of the Russia-Ukraine war then? A lot depends on how well-trained the crew is. That's why Ukrainian artillerymen went through intense training at German military ranges. It lasted a month and a half, practically without breaks. And it wasn't a walk in the park. It was especially tough for the mechanics who had to learn every tiny detail inside and out to properly maintain the system before and after battles.
Окремо була в них.
They had a separate training program. They went through the course 3 times. And to make things even harder, most Ukrainian gunners had only worked with old Soviet artillery before, machines with zero electronics, let alone NATO's high-tech systems. So saying they were blown away by the PzH 2000's onboard systems is an understatement.
Автомобілі, а завтра...
It's like going from driving a car to piloting Darth Vader's spaceship. Hit that like button if you just imagined Jedi faces of shock as they see Vader loading shells into a PzH 2000. But unfortunately, high-tech electronics aren't always battlefield-friendly in heavy rain or snowstorms. There's a real risk they could malfunction due to excessive moisture or dirt. That's why soldiers inside wear special boots and even use a vacuum cleaner. So maybe the next-gen version of the PzH 2000 should come with a free cleaning service. Just kidding, but keeping the system clean and dry is a major task for the crew. But the Panzer has advantages that make you forget about these little inconveniences. According to a former Ukrainian commander, the PzH 2000's undeniable strength is its protection, thanks to homogeneous rolled steel armor.
Так вона на 10-12.
It's called Panzer for a reason. It weighs 10 to 12 tons more than any other howitzer in its class. That extra weight, it's all about crew protection, because training an artillery crew is long and expensive. German engineers also put serious thought into preventing catastrophic ammunition detonations, a nightmare scenario for any crew.
Фантастично продумано.
The way they designed the ammo storage is fantastic. The propellant charges are kept in separate compartments, just like in a Leopard or Abrams tank, behind armored doors. Even if something hits, the panels blow out, but the crew survives. We've mentioned in previous videos that every Western weapon system in Ukraine is constantly hunted by Russian reconnaissance and strike drones. But when the PzH 2000 was being developed, drone warfare wasn't a massive threat yet. Surprisingly though, this howitzer's armor is proving up to the challenge. It's one of the few vehicles that doesn't need extra cage armor for drone defense because it can handle itself.
Струмінь кумулятивний, там він того ж...
For a Lancet's shaped charge jet to reach the ammo and trigger detonation, it first has to pierce the side armor, then the side skirts, then hit the track, then get past a road wheel, then go through the inner hull wall. And only after all that, if anything is left of the warhead, might it actually reach the shells. The PzH 2000 has a 5-person crew, and they stay inside at all times. There's no need to step out during battle to load shells like with the Soviet 2S7 Bion, another howitzer fighting alongside the German system in Ukraine. And that factor? It literally saved a Ukrainian artilleryman's life when his vehicle was hit.
Загинув міхвод.
When our driver was killed and I was wounded, the other 3 guys who weren't hurt got out and did exactly what they were trained to do. Now imagine you're a loader on a Caesar howitzer, firing shells when suddenly a Russian recon drone spots you. Chances are you won't just have a kamikaze drone coming your way. You'll get a rain of mortar rounds or cluster shells in your sector. That's a massive risk. But inside the PzH 2000, artillerymen feel a lot safer. The problem with artillery is that we're constantly under fire, and most of the time without armor. Here, I feel secure. I know this thing can take a 152mm shell. Even if it lands just a few meters away, we'll be fine inside. Want to learn more about Western artillery and tech in the war? Subscribe to the channel. But can the Panzerhaubitze handle muddy fields and snow-covered plains in Eastern Europe? We've used the PzH 2000 in rain and snow. It's not like the Pion, where if it rains, you just stop working. In fully automatic mode, this howitzer only needs 2 crew members to keep firing, even though its standard crew is 5. Besides the commander, gunner, and driver, there are 2 loaders, who step in when reloading the ammo rack, or if the autoloader malfunctions. You're sitting in the gunner's seat. Here's the commander's spot. This is where the first and second loaders sit, and over there, that's the driver's seat. On combat missions, these guys feel confident because their safety comes first. The PzH 2000 is equipped with NBC protection, ventilation, and an automatic fire suppression system. During operation, we close all the hatches. The gun pulls in air through filters, creating internal pressure. This pushes all the smoke outside while firing. If chefs have a secret ingredient in their recipes, Western Howitzer manufacturers have a built-in computer, the ultimate artillery assistant that calculates everything and helps deliver the perfect serving of destruction. I input the coordinates here, select the fuse type, and set how it should detonate. If it's a programmable fuse, I enter the altitude for detonation. Then I make corrections. Once everything is set, I hit save, and I'm ready to fire. The Ukrainian PzH 2000 crews have prepared plenty of surprises for the Russians in the form of 155mm shells. Their arsenal includes smart 155mm, M982 Excalibur, Volcano rounds, and even Indian-made 155mm munitions. This is in Smart 155 shell. We use them against tanks. They're easy to operate because the gun calculates all the coordinates. Everything is automated. A Ukrainian artilleryman who has fired dozens of rounds describes what using these beasts is like.
Максимально ефективна дальність ураження.
The max effective range depends on the shell type. Up to 30 kilometers, the firepower is at its peak. If the shell hits the target, nothing is left standing where it lands. Throughout the full-scale war, Ukrainians have tested various NATO shells. But are Germany's Smart 155 shells as effective as the manufacturer claims? Here's how a Ukrainian soldier recalls using them. We found a spot where the enemy felt completely safe. They thought we couldn't hit them effectively. They didn't even bother hiding. Then we rolled in with a Smart 155 shells, and let's just say we gave them a proper nightmare. The results didn't take long to show. For 2 days straight, our crew took out 5 tanks, each with a detonation. And here's how that looks in action. For this Russian tank, its encounter with the PzH 2000 was its last. In another clip, the Howitzer engages in counter-battery fire, taking out a Russian Gatsin B along with its ammunition depot. The impact is impressive, but there's a trade-off. Maintenance time. Even after just 2 shots, servicing the gun takes a full day. So is this a deal breaker, or does the firepower make up for it? On land targets, the PzH 2000 has proven itself 100%. But did you know that, in theory, it could have been used for naval strikes? Yep, you heard that right. In the 2000s, the German military explored ways to increase naval firepower without major ship modifications. Engineers even plan to replace the 76mm OTO Malera Compact on the Hamburg frigate with the PzH 2000's turret, which can hit targets up to 25 miles away. Sounds promising, but reality didn't quite match expectations. While test range trials were deemed successful, it's unclear whether it was ever tested at sea. Ultimately, before the Hamburg entered service, the PzH 2000 turret was removed. Since then, Germany hasn't experimented with land-based artillery on ships again. Our take? Weapons should be used for their intended purpose. That's how you get the best results. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments. Before the Russia-Ukraine war, the PzH 2000 had its first combat experience in Afghanistan, firing against the Taliban. But honestly, that was more of a live fire test range than a real war. The commander who trained me in Germany fired just 28 shells from a PzH 2000 in Afghanistan. On my first day in Ukraine, I fired 2 full ammo loads, 120 shells, then went to sleep very satisfied. In September 2006, 3 Dutch PzH 2000s were used in Operation Medusa, securing Panjwai and its surroundings. The following year, the Dutch deployed them to Uruzgan, where they supported the assault on Taranquout. Meanwhile, Germany was hesitant to send its own PzH 2000s, since German politicians considered the mission a policing operation, meaning troops were only supposed to have light weapons. That changed after 3 Bundeswehr soldiers were killed. Germany finally approved sending 3 howitzers to Kunduz, and on July 10, 2010, they saw combat for the first time, covering the evacuation of an armored vehicle that hit a mine. The Afghan war revealed some flaws in the PzH 2000. The ventilation system struggled in extreme dust, and extra top armor was needed because Taliban forces heavily relied on mortars. The biggest issue? Overheating and dust infiltration, which could shut down the entire system. Germany later introduced an upgraded version to fix some of these problems. But let's be real, nothing could have prepared the PzH 2000 for Ukraine, where it's fighting a far stronger enemy than the Taliban. And yet, Ukrainian artillerymen swear by it. We're very grateful to the Chancellor of Germany and the German people for these ACS. This is a perfect weapon. One such howitzer is worth 3 Soviet ones we used to have. Compared to Soviet-era artillery, the PzH 2000 is king in armor, firepower, and automation. But its downsides? Complex maintenance and sensitive electronics. Even so, it remains one of the best self-propelled guns out there. What do you think is its biggest advantage? Armor, automation, or firepower? Drop your thoughts in the comments.
That boom you felt? Just us saying good morning.
That's the sound of a 155mm shell going off, the original crowd disperser. On the front, they call them kabanchiki, which can be translated as little boars or piglets. We hit ammo depots and fuel storage points. As for enemy personnel, it's impossible to count how many were eliminated. Inside a 155mm shell lies modern PBX, plastic bonded explosives, which are 1.3 to 1.6 times more powerful than regular TNT. It's like getting a little extra sauce in your military mess hall. Oh no, stop it, dude. Never trust a private who says, "I saw it on YouTube," especially around explosives. But you can trust a sergeant.
Still, neither the presence nor absence of powerful explosives or shrapnel affects shot accuracy.
If you want to lob a shell straight into your millionaire grandma's picnic basket, you need a solid long barrel. And trust me, this video's got plenty of those. But even the longest barrel won't help if you just shout, "Hey boys, I see the enemy." Let's launch the piglet and make them regret it.
Nobody. Here's how it really works. You don't actually see the enemy.
You just know the general direction of their positions. So, the first thing you need is a good firing position for your gun. If your battery is supporting an advance or covering a retreat, it's like scouting out a picnic spot. Except instead of sandwiches, you're setting up piglets with fillings. That's when you call in the guy with the bustle. I'm a topographic surveyor. My job is to calibrate the gun for accurate fire. I set up the bustle and the night targeting point so the gun fires more precisely.
A bustle is basically a high-end artillery compass.
It measures the angle between the gun and the target. Even a 1-degree mistake can send your shell hundreds of meters or yards off target, especially if you're firing from 10 kilometers out.
Now imagine where your little bore ends up if the distance is 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers, or even further. Let's just say the commander won't be handing out compliments.
Then the gun is quickly placed in the firing position. The gunner uses the sight to aim based on the bustle's data and waits for the target coordinates.
You can't fire without an order. During active maneuvers, a friendly fire incident is every artilleryman's worst nightmare.
During an operation, an artillery rep is always present at the command post alongside other units. This makes coordination much easier. We all understand where our guys are moving and where the artillery is about to hit. Even on a stable front, artillery doesn't fire from random pretty spots. First, the position has to be hidden from drones and satellites, ideally under a forest canopy, between buildings, or behind terrain folds. And if it's a long-term position, dig, dig, and dig. Whoever says artillerymen don't dig has no clue what they're talking about. You have to dig everywhere. The guys build shelters, camouflage the guns, because the enemy doesn't sit still. Their recon works really well. So how well you hide your guns directly affects whether your crew lives or dies. But there's a catch. Your position has to be on solid ground. If you dig into a swamp, not even a giant truck will pull your howitzer out. Sure, it's harder to dig, but remember, if a vehicle can't reach your position, you're going to end up hauling those shells by hand. And when it's time to pull out, not even St. Barbara, the patron saint of artillerymen, will save your gun from the mud.
Phew, all dug in. Now we can grab a smoke and some coffee. Ever imagined it could be this cozy underground?
Target? Yeah.
Hey guys, wait, how do you know where to shoot? Guys, they can't hear me. Okay, I won't interrupt. Let me ask someone else.
Back in the day, you'd get target coordinates from some dude sitting in a tree, or even hiding inside a tree trunk. They'd adjust fire by shouting, "Short, over, direct hit." And yeah, those kinds of specialists still exist in this war. We work as part of a reconnaissance and fire complex. Our gear is an artillery compass and a drone, but now they're a rare breed. Hey, get down from that tree. These days, it's recon drones doing most of the spotting. All the coordinates we use come from the Fire Control Center. They see everything through drones. They're our eyes. Without them, we don't shoot. We just don't know where to aim. Here's how it works. Find targets, we send out a drone system, short or long range. Once the drone spots a target, it locks onto the location and helps the artillery hit more accurately. We observe where our shells land and adjust for better precision. Once they get the target's coordinates, the gun commander calculates the distance, either old school, using a map, or with a tablet. Then comes the command. Shell, high explosive fragmentation. Charge number 3, elevation angle 340, azimuth 2750, fire. Yeah, it sounds like gibberish, but for an artilleryman, it's like a McDonald's worker taking an order. So here's the breakdown. High explosive fragmentation is the most versatile shell. It combines blast damage with shrapnel, making it effective against dugouts, vehicles, enemy personnel, you name it. Charge number 3. That's the powder charge, packed into a little white bag. It determines the initial speed of the shell. Charge number 1 is the weakest. Number 7 is the most powerful. Number 3, think of it as medium roast. Not too close, not too far. Elevation angle 340 means the barrel of the gun needs to be lifted about 20 degrees. Azimuth 2750 refers to the horizontal firing direction. 2750 corresponds to 165 degrees. In artillery speak, that's south-southeast. Fire. Well, that one you already know. You could shout it right now and no one would question you. Complicated? It's just a matter of memorization. That's why not everyone gets into artillery. There's no set formula to know if someone will be a good artilleryman, but it definitely helps if they've dealt with math in civilian life. Now, let's talk about Kabanchiki, or the piglets. Quick brief. A DPICM round, or the piglet, as the guys call it, is packed with nasty surprises inside, shrapnel and mini bomblets. When it hits, there's no worse place to be on Earth. We use cluster shells against infantry or light vehicles. For heavier vehicles, we go with high explosive fragmentation. And for dugouts, just straight up HE shells. When it comes to wiping out infantry spread out in tree lines or brush, there's nothing better than DPICM. That's why in the Russo-Ukrainian War, both sides use them.
And that's lesson number 1 in modern artillery warfare. Their kill radius?
It depends on the type of 155mm shell. Some have shrapnel that spreads up to 400 meters, others just 200. Not bad at all, right? But what about heavy armor? For that, there's a different beast. This is the Smart 155 round. We use it against tanks. A Smart stands for Schutzsünder Munition für die Artillerie.
A lovely little German death machine.
Inside are 2 submunitions that pop out at around 1,000 meters altitude and parachute down gently like Chip and Dale. Then boom, not even 100mm of armor can save the crew. Yep, a classic piece of German engineering. The Germans always knew a little more about war than most. Enjoying this video? Smash that like button. It helps more people discover the truth. But right now, there are 2 most experienced armies on Earth, Ukraine and Russia, going head-to-head for the 4th year. That's why this channel breaks down this war.
Thanks for subscribing. You have subscribed, right? Right? Okay, time to be amazed.
Inside those parachuting Chip and Dales, beyond the explosives and electronic brains, you've got infrared, radar, and radiometric sensors. They'll find a tank even if it just farted and puffed out smoke. But you can't just launch a smart shell and hope the chipmunks sort it all out on their own. That's where Ukraine's Kropova combat control system comes in. Think Google Maps, but for battlefield chaos. On a tablet or phone, it shows enemy positions, friendly forces, incoming fire, observer locations, all in real time. Everyone's synced, and anyone spotting a target can drop a pin. Say a recon guy spots a tank. Boom, he taps the Kropova map.
Artillery crews, mortar teams, drone operators, everyone sees it. And a minute later, a piglet's on its way.
The real magic of Kropova is that range and trajectory are auto-calculated. It has a ballistic calculator for every type of gun in the Ukrainian army. Now even a cook can become a gunner? But hold up. Every new recruit is taught how to do every role in the gun crew. You might start off loading shells, but you could end up commanding the gun, even leading a platoon. So yeah, one way or another, you're gonna get ripped. First, you're stacking shells.
Then you're lugging 45-kilogram rounds around. That ain't the same as flexing at the beach on vacation.
If you load 100 shells a day, your back turns to stone. You come back feeling like your whole body's locked up. My loaders have arms like orangutans. They move 10 to 15 tons of ammo per day. Of course, if you're Archimedes' grandson, maybe your biceps will be a little smaller. Still, even with satellites, tablets, Kropiva, drones, and laser beams powered by antimatter, artillery crews need to know the old school ways. That means calculating by hand, using a compass, and reading a proper military aiming circle. Why?
Because war isn't a video game with a permanent Wi-Fi connection.
The battery can die. It might rain, and your electronics short out. Your comms or GPS might get jammed, or something explodes so hard nothing works at all.
Then all you've got left is a map, a pencil, and your head.
Also, you're not working with just one system. Since the war started, Ukraine's artillery force has become the most varied in history.
У нас є насправді.
For example, we have all calibers from the Italian Melara 105mm to NATO standard 155mm howitzers. Every battery commander has to know how to operate them all. Time to talk guns. Ukraine's got the best barrels from all over the world, made across a full century of design. At the start of the war, most guns were Soviet-made, and they're still kicking. What's their main advantage?
В радянських, тому що
Soviet weapons aren't too picky about maintenance. Western ones? Yeah, they're a bit more high maintenance. That's just the reality. Some of the towed howitzers sent over by Ukraine's allies are as old as the Soviet ones, but no less deadly. Take the L-119, a small but angry British 105mm gun. Our gun fired 206 shells in a single day. That was during the Wagner breakthrough. We covered our battalion and held them back.
Стан стволів, звісно.
What makes it deadly is the barrel. That's where the accuracy comes from, and it's the biggest strength of this howitzer. Most Soviet guns lose accuracy when used like that, end up shooting at birds instead of tanks.
На відміну від D-30.
This thing weighs 1,900 kilograms. The D-30? Almost a ton heavier. You can literally move the L-119 by hand. 2 people are enough to spin it around.
Honestly, I'd take this baby out with my buddies for some weekend target practice. You can tow it with a regular Jeep.
But if you've got a Honda Civic, or you're shopping for a gift for your wife, check out this little beast. Doesn't eat much, but sure knows how to bark loud. Fire! We fire about 100 to 150 shells per gun per day. The OTO Melara Mod 56, also known as the pack howitzer, can be disassembled into parts and carried on your back, by mule, or even flown in by aircraft.
Працюємо на різну відстань.
We operate at various distances. It might be 1 kilometer, maybe 2. We can also fire at the maximum allowed range, between 2 to 5 kilometers, depending on the sector. Of course, these 105mm howitzers won't win the war by themselves, but they can hurt the enemy on small sections of the front. Their max range is about 10 kilometers, which means they're working right up at the front line. But thanks to their compact size, they're much easier to hide and move around. Now, to hide an M777, Ukrainians have to build decoys because Russian Lancet drones actively hunt them down in forest strips.
Decoys are now an entire subgenre of the war. Our channel even has a video showing how they're made and used.
Check it out to see what real deception looks like. Fire! The barrel life of the triple axis, as Ukrainian troops call them, is about 2,500 rounds before the tube needs replacing. These howitzers fire like basketballs landing in the hoop. They have a margin of error of up to 3 meters. 3 meters for a 155mm shell? You're not walking away from that. Seriously, you won't find a single person on YouTube who survived a direct hit. But the real game changer for artillery: drones.
Били ланцети.
Our howitzers have been hit by lancets. Here's a lancet fragment. These things are made of sticks and glue, but there are just too many of them. These flying pests make it impossible to stay in one place. But trying to move a towed howitzer fast? Not easy. That's why the true MVP of this war has been the SPH, Self-Propelled Howitzer. Sure, everyone knew SPHs were effective, but no one expected just how well they'd fit modern warfare. Troops even have a phrase for it now: shoot and scoot.
See, with a regular howitzer, you need a truck to haul it, time to stop, set up, aim. That all adds up.
But an SPH, it drives itself to where it needs to be. It takes just 30 seconds to deploy, fire, and then another 30 seconds to pack up and move out again. If artillery is the god of war, then the Archer on its Volvo truck chassis is Zeus, the king of gods. This beast is basically a cannon and a truck rolled into one. It drives itself in, fires fast, and gets out. Think of it like that guy who shows up at a party, slaps everyone around, and disappears into the night with the prettiest girl.
Це одна з
Yeah,
найкращих.
it's one of the best self-propelled artillery systems. The crew only reloads. The machine does everything else. They don't even step out of the cab to fire. These guys are living large compared to other artillery crews. The targeting data is input while the vehicle is moving. As it approaches a firing position, the gunner simply punches coordinates into the onboard computer. That's it. No aiming scopes, no azimuths, no angles. The barrel lifts itself, and boom, 3 rounds in 15 seconds. The shells haven't even landed before Archer is already gone. But Archer isn't the only wheeled SPH in Ukraine's army. A wheeled chassis means fast legs and a long reach. On the highway, we can hit speeds of up to 80 kilometers per hour. Enter Bodana, Ukraine's homegrown wheeled SPH. Its gun is chambered for NATO's 155mm standard, so it can fire international rounds. Bodana played a key role in cutting off Russian logistics by hammering the Antonivsky Bridge near Kherson in summer 2022.
То, що ми в основному стріляємо.
We fire based on signals from a drone.
Коли безпілотниками ми засікаємо ціль,
The drone spots the target, sends me the coordinates, I pass them to the battery, and after firing, the UAV adjusts our aim. See, the tools have changed, but the recon artillery teamwork remains the same. Bodana even had a rather unorthodox debut. The Ukrainians loaded her onto a barge sailing down the Danube to get close enough to hit Snake Island. It was weird floating down the Danube on it, but firing from it, totally normal. Still, wheeled SPHs aren't a silver bullet. Their off-road capabilities are limited.
Значить, вирвало.
We had a brake line tear. The vehicle stopped and wouldn't move. Winter is coming. It'll be mud and frost. This will happen nearly every day. That's when it's time to talk about tracked SPHs. These are also present on the battlefield, and thanks to modern electronics, targeting works basically the same, no matter what they're mounted on. The machine has a gyro compass. Once it reaches the position, it already knows where it is. It just needs to send those coordinates to fire control. With the battlefield swarming with drones, Ukrainian M109 crews constantly rotate positions, or go into full stealth mode.
Can you dig in an M109? Absolutely.
It also features an automated fire control system. Here's how it works. This is the gunner's computer, and this one's mine. I input the GPS coordinates from my navigator, no matter where I've stopped. I send those to the commander. He gives me the target coordinates, and I can fire immediately. No aiming scopes needed. So, yeah, you just crawl out of your hide, do your job, and disappear. Recognize this beauty? I input coordinates, choose the fuse type, set the detonation method. If it's programmable, I enter the burst height, apply corrections, press save, and I'm ready to fire. That's the PzH 2000, also on a tracked chassis, and one of the most powerful guns on Earth. You could call it the Mercedes of artillery, although it's not as fast as wheeled SPHs.
Its autoloader in the newer versions is ASMR material. I fall asleep to the sound of that mechanical guillotine every night. Maybe it's because I'm part German.
Or maybe it's just that tracked SPHs inspire more trust. Who knows? But tell us in the comments, which SPH do you think will dominate the battlefield in the next 10 years? Wheeled or tracked? Or maybe we'll see a surprise comeback of towed artillery. If you like this new format, drop your topic ideas below. Most liked one gets the spotlight.
Here is the brutal truth from the zero line. We either evolve to faster, smarter systems right now, or we don't survive. There is no plan B.
Removing a muzzle brake with nothing but a log just to clean the barrel? No problem. Pulling the engine? A bit tougher, but doable. The AS-90 is repaired on the knee. There is less electronic flash here and less automation. That's exactly why for a long time it was lost in the shadow of the German Howitzer PzH 2000, the technological icon of artillery. But there's a catch. The shells the AS-90 fires sometimes make it more convincing than its German rival. Why do British munitions work differently? What exactly about the AS-90 surprised the Ukrainian crews? And why does it look like this war will be its last? That's exactly what this video is about. To start, let's see some combat work. Because right now, a 155mm AS-90 self-propelled howitzer is taking part in repelling an assault. The barrel recoils. Shells fly toward the spot where 17 Russian stormtroopers just disembarked. These are those same unique shells you'll learn about once this fight is over, and the crew returns to their staging area. For now, watch them in action. Let's speed it up a bit. Go ahead. hit that like button, because where else are you going to see the result of textbook work from artillerymen? Even for the commanders watching the mission on a stack of screens, this footage is unique. The last Russian stormtrooper tries to find a place to hide. He doesn't make it in time. Job done. The vehicle returns to an underground bunker. The gates close quickly. Time to catch a breath, have a smoke, and ask the guys about their AS-90. What are their impressions?
Whew, to be honest, my arms are falling off.
Yeah, the AS-90s aren't the newest in Europe. Here, only the shell delivery is mechanized. Everything else is manual labor. But only war determines the strengths and weaknesses of a weapon. So, what does the lack of an autoloader affect besides the loader's health? First and foremost, the rate of fire. Nowadays, to survive, a crew needs to act very fast. But due to the lack of an autoloader, the AS-90s aren't that quick. Let's compare them to the gold standard. While the PzH 2000 is capable of firing up to 5 shells on different trajectories, so they hit the target simultaneously, the maximum rate of fire for the AS-90s is 3 shots in 10 seconds.
To get off 3 quick shots, you need 2 shells standing right here, ready to go, and 1 already loaded.
The subsequent rate of fire, as you can imagine, depends entirely on the physical conditioning of the crew. However, there are advantages to simplicity. For instance, you don't have to change your boots when you step into the fighting compartment, like the PzH 2000 crews do. The absence of an autoloader means less dependence on complex electronic modules and sensors that are afraid of dirt and moisture, and are hard to repair in the middle of a forest using a log or a hammer. Because servicing an autoloader requires more than just wrenches. It takes diagnostic laptops with proprietary software and specific calibration tools. Finally, it's the lack of complex equipment that makes mastering the British Howitzer easier. Is that a major plus or not? You decide. But here's what the fighters say.
We're self-taught. My whole crew, they're all self-taught.
Yes, the AS-90s are from the past, though not as ancient as the British tracked APCs, the FV-103 Spartan. That's why the British SPGs show themselves not only as more resistant to field conditions, but also more intuitive for artillerymen who have experience working with Soviet systems. However, that doesn't mean the AS-90s are that old. No, they don't need an aiming circle.
This system isn't jammed by EWs because it's autonomous and works only for this vehicle. It aims itself without additional steps. It aims, and that's it. Then we just take the shot.
Let's break it down. They've implemented lineups here, the laser inertial navigation and pointing system, which is autonomous. That's why the vehicle determines exactly where it is and where its barrel is pointed without any external landmarks. British power is impressive, but what about the accuracy? After all, Ukrainian artillery accounts for about 40% of Russian losses. How are these British SPGs performing?
The AS-90s are quite accurate, so we use them for counter-battery fire as well. At the very least, we hit the required grid square.
Here's how a counter-battery mission goes down. The SPG's commander receives target data via radio or through a digital battle management system. The data can come in while the AS-90 is moving.
Usually, we operate on the principle of a roving gun.
The British Howitzer is ready to fire in less than 60 seconds from the moment of a full stop. For a few seconds, the onboard computer calculates the necessary elevation angles and azimuth, taking into account barrel wear, shell type, and weather conditions. The gunner sees the commands on the screen. In automatic mode, electric drives traverse and elevate the barrel to the specified coordinates. Boom!
We saturate them. They can't even pull up their own artillery.
But it's time to take a look at these magical British shells, thanks to which the AS-90s make their contribution to the casualty statistics.
Come on, let me show you these shells. They sit separately from the tubes with the powder bags.
So the L-15A1/A2s, the AS-90s were actually designed specifically around this shell. What's so special about them? Back in the day, the L-15 shell was developed to be the most powerful NATO standard. The thing is, it contains about 11.3 kilograms of explosives. That's a lot. But to help you understand the gulf between the Brit and other popular shells, take a look at these numbers. For comparison, the standard German DM-121 fired by the PzH 2000 or the American M107 shell and others have between 6.5 and 9 kilograms of explosives. And as you can probably guess, the more explosives, the more powerful the shockwave.
Good work, boys. Come on into the shelter.
However, stuffing more explosives into a shell is a difficult task. The British pulled off one strange trick with the L-15 munition that the Germans didn't think of. What are we talking about? Before we continue uncovering these little-known facts, please subscribe to our channel. It's your subscription that inspires us to keep researching the effectiveness of modern, and not so modern, weapons in real combat, rather than just on a proving ground. Thank you. So, moving on. The walls of the L-15 are made of high-quality steel. Yes, this steel is more expensive, but it's stronger. That's why the Brits were able to make the shell walls thinner without losing structural integrity. But the main goal of this trick is to fit in more explosives without increasing the size or the total weight of the shell.
The scale of destruction from these shells and this gun is well known to the enemy.
The result? Because of the more powerful explosion, the shrapnel velocity is higher, which increases the lethal kill zone. You've got to admit, that's a smart move. But can the AS-90s use shells from other manufacturers? This is a crucial question, because specific shells often require specific logistics. Besides, the Ukrainian army sometimes faces shortages of munitions from one manufacturer or another.
All the shells they brought yesterday, we fired off today.
Therefore, it's better to have a universal gun that's in action than a specialized one sitting idle in an underground parking lot. The AS-90s don't have downtime. They are omnivorous workhorses. Their barrels and chambers are designed for munitions from almost all Western manufacturers within the 155mm NATO standard. The British Howitzer will easily swallow a German DM-121 and lob it exactly on target. But there is a catch. A German shell doesn't turn the British Howitzer into a PzH 2000. In other words, the AS-90's firing range with a German shell will remain as it was, up to 30 kilometers. It seems people expect more from a Western gun. For comparison, the PzH 2000 is capable of hurling these shells over 40 kilometers. Why can't the AS-90s do that? As sad as it is, friend, size matters. No matter what the optimists say. The fact is, most AS-90s have a barrel length of 6 meters, which provides less range compared to the German PzH 2000, which has an 8-meter barrel. The longer the barrel, the greater the range, and vice versa. That's just how it works. As it turned out, the German SPGs, which crews nicknamed the Fickle Lady, were developed as Third Millennium Artillery, where the main focus is on maximum high-tech, precision, and maximum range. You can easily find a video about the nuances of operating the German SPGs on our channel. But the AS-90s represent a completely different philosophy. They are simple and reliable, provided you perform timely maintenance.
The more often you grease it, the better.
And most importantly, you need spare parts to keep it in working order. But that's exactly where the main problems for the AS-90s in Ukraine begin. And it's very, very serious.
Assembling, disassembling, or tuning it? No problem. Some parts you can even turn on a lathe. But when it comes to the supply of critical components, that's a problem. Without them, keeping the SPGs in working order is impossible.
The situation is tough, and it might get worse because the AS-90s are no longer in production, and Britain has handed over all its available SPGs to Ukraine. 99 units. But imagine this. A third of those units were transferred in non-working condition. Why? They were meant to be spare parts donors to keep the main group combat ready. For a while, it worked. But everything has its limit. Over the years of the war, up to 12 AS-90s have been destroyed or damaged, and the rest have been operating under extreme conditions.
I calculated that in a year, my battery fired 10,000 rounds. The Brits say that's a huge amount. Basically, we're squeezing everything out of them.
We suspect those vehicles, as well as the donors, have been stripped down to the last bolt. So how are the Ukrainians managing this situation? It's known that Britain continues to supply critical high-wear components. Specifically, aid packages include new L31A1 barrels and other scarce spare parts. It's likely that some of the parts could be provided by Poland. The thing is, the turret of the Polish AHS Crab SPGs is a licensed copy of the AS-90's turret, so some modules might be interchangeable. Like what? First, the loading mechanisms, since the turret architecture is identical. Second, the breech and the breech block, as they're made to NATO standards. Third, the laying drives and gun elevation mechanisms. Theoretically, this allows using the Polish repair base for the British vehicles, but only partially. You're about to see why. So the engine.
Right now, we're replacing the power plant because it lost its pull.
As for the Cummins VTA903T engines, these units are still being manufactured, though exclusively for military needs. Because besides the AS-90s, Cummins engines are used by the Bradleys and the M27OAs fighting in Ukraine. So there are no issues with spare parts, replacement, or repair for these engines. But with everything else,
Our vehicles are from the 90s, 91 and 93 production years. They are very old. Every 10 days, something needs repair.
for example, regarding spare parts for the chassis, do you think the AS-90s were built on the base of the Challenger 2 tank? No, the Brits outsmarted themselves here, because the chassis of the AS-90 self-propelled artillery unit is an original design. For some reason, this chassis didn't become the base for a whole family of armored vehicles, as often happens with other platforms. Even the modern Polish Crab has a different base. It's a hybrid of the AS-90's turret and a South Korean chassis from the K9 Thunder SPGs. You can watch more about this super interesting Polish SPG in a separate video. That's why the war in Ukraine is likely the last war for the AS-90 SPGs, because even the sturdy chassis of the British gun has a limited service life.
Even iron gets tired and grows old over the years.
However, this war seems to be the first where artillery isn't the primary means of destruction. In any case, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Syrskyi, claims that the statistics are on the side of strike UAVs, which inflict up to 60% of the total losses on the enemy. Does this mean the death of artillery? Not at all, because 40% of losses from artillery is still a significant share. That's why, having given away all its AS-90 SPGs, Britain is looking for a replacement. London urgently purchased 14 Archer-wheeled systems from Sweden. This is a real sniper among artillery. The Archer is fully automated, deploys in 20 seconds, and can fire 3 shells in 15 seconds, leaving the position before they even hit the target. But the main successor to the AS-90s will be the RCH 155-wheeled SPGs. This is the world's first howitzer that can fire on the move. The RCH 155 uses the same gun as the PzH 2000, integrated into a different module. Only 2 crew members are needed here, but all of this is mounted on the chassis of a Boxer-wheeled APCs. Another advantage of a wheeled chassis is that maintenance is multiple times cheaper and simpler than tracked ones. Additionally, the mileage before a major overhaul is significantly higher for wheeled vehicles, and they consume less fuel than tracked vehicles. But you know that only war determines what's truly better. So, just in case, the Germans developed a tracked version of the RCH 155 SPGs because tracked chassis are considered more durable, though more expensive. What will be the deciding factor? Price or survivability? We will be the first to find out what wheeled chassis are worth on heavy black soil, because Ukraine became the first customer of the RCH 155s.
We need to change something. We need to switch to more advanced and faster systems. There's no other way.
Let us know in the comments if you think the RCH 155s will be a game changer, or should Britain maybe restart production of the AS-90s, but in a more high-tech modification.
May 2022. Ukrainian soldiers are suffering devastating losses due to a critical shortage of ammunition. But as if in a fantasy, a wizard with firepower appears to help stop the enemy. This paladin, quite literally, becomes one of the most powerful weapons the Ukrainians desperately need. But more than 2 years have passed. How have the soldiers' attitudes toward Western self-propelled artillery changed? Are they still the wizards of the battlefield today? Or is it time for something else to take their place? The gun commander within the 40th Artillery Brigade is the best person to tell us how well Western self-propelled artillery systems are handling today's challenges. It is the legendary crab that destroys the enemy and doesn't let them feel safe even 18 to 24 miles from the front line. It sounds pretty convincing. But how did the Polish crab earn this legendary title? The fact is that the crab successfully combines a Polish hull with a British AS-90 turret and a 155mm cannon. This unit has a range of up to 24 miles and can fire high-precision ammunition. Ukrainian soldiers back this up. There's this MRC feature. We can fire 4 shots at the same point, and they all hit the target at the same time. But that's not even the full power. The gun commander of the 40th Brigade proudly shares how they once pulled off the impossible. We fired 15 rounds in a minute and a half. It was like a machine gun. And that's before the crab's mechs dropped their cluster munitions, which will mercilessly destroy the enemy. The Russians are terrified of them, of these cluster munitions. They are hysterical, because it could shred them into pieces, like making a salad. Ukrainians have a special attitude towards crabs, partly because the 18 Polish artillery systems were the first self-propelled guns that international partners dared to provide, despite Putin's constant threats. Sometimes, it seems like Ukrainian soldiers are as fond of these artillery systems as they are of a girl they've had a crush on for years. When you're adjusting some mortars at the battalion level, and then you're told that the crab will be coming in and will come in and throw 2 or 3 shells, it feels like you're in a correspondence with a girl you've liked all your life. In 2 years, the darling of Ukrainian soldiers destroyed billions of dollars worth of equipment, including both missile systems and mortar positions. But even the crabs have taken some hits. Their biggest enemy turned out to be the Russian Lancet drone, which managed to destroy or damage quite a few Polish units. The main threat to the crab, like other artillery systems, is the Lancet drones. That's why we use this so-called wire mesh netting. It prevents the Lancet from hitting its target. Luckily for Ukrainian soldiers, they found a simple and effective counter to the Lancets. Deserves a like, doesn't it? But it's not just about the crab. Thanks to the variety of Western self-propelled artillery on the front lines, Ukrainian artillerymen have become the most experienced and versatile in the world today. Here's how satisfied Ukrainian soldiers are with the Caesar self-propelled artillery system. Well, it's highly maneuverable and can shoot far, which is important. You can repair it easily too. So it's good that we can repair it and keep it up ourselves. France handed over the first 12 Caesar units in May 2022, after direct negotiations between Presidents Macron and Zelensky. Ukrainian forces use the Caesar for counter-battery operations, thanks to its ability to rapidly deploy, fire 6 standard rounds per minute, similar to the crab, and evade enemy fire due to its high mobility. We have been impressed by many things during the time we have been working on this system, is that in the fall of 23, in the Shakhtarsk direction, almost with the second shot, counter-battery warfare, by the way, destroyed the enemy's 2 C-19 self-propelled artillery vehicle, which, by the way, is the first competitor for counter-battery warfare. You basically outplayed it, right? Was it with a full complement of ammunition? Yes, it was utterly torn apart. Nothing was left of it. After the crab and Caesar, an absolute legend entered the arena, the M109. Ukraine has received the M109A3 and M109A6 Paladin versions. The main advantage of the M109 is its modularity and protection. The crew is well protected by armor, which increases survival under fire. The M109 is well known for its crew comfort. It's designed with heating and air conditioning, which is crucial for long combat missions in different conditions. And it seems Ukrainian soldiers are thrilled about it. It's got a manual throttle. I just press it, set it to 1200 RPM on the tachometer, and it holds 1200 steady. Like cruise control? Exactly. But what the soldiers love most is its high performance. The more you fire, the more enemies, well, you get the idea. And the more likes and subscriptions, the more videos with new topics. There were times we worked 2 days straight, so intensely that we barely had time to reload before we were right back in the fight. There were moments like that, but we managed. How many rounds in a day? My record is 192 shells in 24 hours. Next in line among the Western wizards is the Czech AHS Dana. Thanks to its unique wheeled chassis, it can quickly move along roads and fire with high mobility. Less than 5 minutes passed from receiving the coordinates, and we're already in position. The commander is inputting the coordinates, and we're about to fire at the enemy. Armed with a 152mm gun, it can fire at a range of up to 12 miles. What makes the Dana special is its fully automated loading system, allowing up to 4 rounds per minute. And often, that first shot is a significant one. In the armed forces, it's how new artillerymen are initiated. As they used to say at the academy, may every shot hit the target. My impression of the first shot? A powerful one. Even with active headphones on, the sound is still deafening. And this machine is competing for the title of the best in the world. The PzH 2000 is equipped with a 155mm gun, capable of firing up to 18 miles with standard rounds and up to 41 miles with special rocket-assisted projectiles. This self-propelled artillery system has one of the fastest loading systems, firing up to 10 rounds per minute, and supports the multiple round simultaneous impact MRSI mode, which allows several shells to hit the target at the same time. Our Ukrainian crew has mastered this beast incredibly well. Just take a look. Isn't it a marvel? It would be awesome if our Western partners sent us even more of this kind of equipment, so we could drive out the occupiers from Ukrainian land even faster. However, this machine has faced a series of problems during its use, which casts doubt on its high status. The German artillery system suffers from intensive use in real-world combat conditions. According to the Wall Street Journal, less than 50% of all delivered PzH 2000s are currently on the front line. All the rest are undergoing maintenance and repair, and often abroad. A worthy contender for the title of the world's best self-propelled gun is the familiar Swedish Archer. The self-propelled artillery vehicle Archer impresses with its automated charging and targeting system. The Archer can deploy and start firing in 30 seconds, and then change position just as quickly. Sweden announced the transfer of the Archer to Ukraine in January 2023, but the first units arrived in September 2023 after extensive technical preparations and training of Ukrainian crews. We trained in Sweden for 2 months. It was quite hard training, 7 days a week, tough work. Luckily, we had good instructors and translators. We were so lucky to work with such a team. The Archer is especially valued for its mobility. It is based on a wheeled chassis, which allows it to move quickly on and off-road, avoid counter-battery fire, and promptly change firing positions. But the best proof of the effectiveness of Western self-propelled artillery systems is the real-life duels with Russian forces. A clear example is a battle that took place in late June 2022 in the steppes of Donbas, where the aging Russian 2S-19 Mista S had to face the PzH 2000. The Russians, not expecting any danger, continued operating at their usual artillery distances, positioning their most expensive systems, including self-propelled guns, 6 to 12 miles from the front line. And then, the inevitable happened. Aerial reconnaissance from the Ukrainian armed forces reported an enemy self-propelled artillery unit within the range of the German Howitzer 2000. Conveniently, this PzH 2000 was loaded with highly accurate Smart 155 shells. After confirming the exact coordinates and targeting, the commander of the machine gave the command, "Fire." Once launched, the shell approached the target and, at a certain altitude, released submunitions that used radar and infrared sensors to search for targets on the ground. As soon as they detected armored vehicles, the submunition struck with a top-down attack using a shaped charge, hitting the weakest point of the armor. Boom! The duel ended in a complete disaster for the Russian Mista. And this duel answers the question we posed at the beginning. Clearly, Western self-propelled artillery systems are irreplaceable on the Ukrainian front, as nearly any foreign artillery system can challenge and destroy Russian armored artillery. Even with potential technical issues and losses in battle, the advantage is undeniable. Because of this, the Russians are even afraid to send their newest long-term construction project called Coalition to the front. However, the main problem for Ukrainians is still the Russians' multiple advantage in artillery. However, thanks to the Ukrainian armed forces' skill in using foreign weapons, this statistic has gone from 1 to 20 to about 1 to 3. With more ammunition and equipment from allies and the expansion of domestic production of the Bodana self-propelled gun, Ukraine's forces could not only neutralize the enemy's advantage, but also surpass them in numbers. If you're interested in how we tell stories about artillery, check out this video.
Just take a look at this beauty. The British L-119, now being used by Ukrainian forces, has become the main rival to the Soviet D-30. But is Western artillery really fit for a war where the barrel barely gets a break from constant firing? Ukrainian gunners have their doubts. We went to Germany for 6 days of training. We asked, what if we fire 200 shells a day? What should we do? How does the barrel hold up? And the American says, pour water on it. Then he comes back half an hour later and goes, actually, we've never fired that much. We might have told you something stupid. British and American forces usually use their L-118 and L-119 howitzers to support light infantry or air mobile units. The main difference between the two is the type of ammo they fire. L-118 uses 105mm shells that only Britain keeps in stock, but L-119 can fire rounds that are available across many NATO countries. That's a big reason why Ukrainian artillery crews received L-119s. Because it's way easier to find enough ammo when you can tap into the stockpiles of dozens of partners, instead of relying on one country. And in the war against Russia, the rule is simple. The more shells artillery has, the safer the infantry feels. You feel the weight of that responsibility, especially if you've served in the infantry. You know how important it is, when the enemy's coming at you in force, to have support behind you. So giving Ukraine the L-119s was a pretty smart move. Smash that like button if you agree. It helps boost the channel and lets us make more content like this for you. But having enough ammo is only half the battle. Can the gun barrel actually take the stress it's under on the battlefield? The American instructors who trained Ukrainians weren't sure, but the reality turned out to be a lot more interesting. My crew's always lucky. We usually fire 50 rounds a day, sometimes up to 100. Our record? One gun fired 206 shells in a single day. That was during the Wagner breakthrough. We were covering our battalion and holding them off. On paper, the L-118 howitzer can fire 6 rounds per minute for the first 2 minutes, then 3 rounds per minute during sustained fire over half an hour. But what about real combat? Well, pretty impressive actually. During the Falklands War, British forces managed to fire up to 400 shells a day from a standard L-118. So it's safe to say the L-119, which is basically the same gun with NATO ammo, holds up just as well. In terms of performance, the L-119 is often compared to the Soviet D-30 and the two S-1 Gvozdika self-propelled gun, both in the 122mm category. Sure, those pack a bigger punch, but their barrels? Not even close to the condition of a well-kept L-119. The big advantage is the barrel. That's where the accuracy comes from, and that's the biggest strength of this howitzer. And when shells are limited, accuracy is a huge deal. We can hit targets much more effectively than with the older Soviet stuff. Those worn-out D-30 barrels just couldn't deliver the accuracy we needed for fortified positions. Of course, there's a catch. The 105mm shell used in the L-119 isn't as powerful as a 122mm one, which can carry up to 4 kilos of explosives. But still, we take one precise hit over a dozen shots that miss. Soviet barrels may rain down more shells, but that doesn't always mean better results. One underrated perk of the L-119? Its low silhouette. The smaller size makes it harder for the enemy to spot. And if things get hot, the crew can pack up and vanish in no time. It's fast to set up, fast to pack down. The whole process is just smooth and easy. Also, and this might surprise you, the L-119 is way quieter than its Soviet counterparts. That means less ringing in your ears and a lower chance of giving away your position. It's just super quiet. You almost can't hear the shot. It doesn't rattle your skull like the old Soviet gear. Even the Russians have taken notice, though maybe not in the way they'd like. Sometimes it's actually kind of nice hearing their intercepted comms. It's coming from somewhere, but we have no idea where. At night, when drones are buzzing above the front lines, artillery positions are easy to spot thanks to the muzzle flash that lights up with every shot. But here's a surprise, the L-119 barely flashes at all. You can imagine the starry-eyed look on Ukrainian soldiers' faces when they found that out. I used to work with the D-30. The L-119's got a few advantages. The D-30 gives off a huge flash at night, but this British one, barely any. You just can't see it in the dark. It doesn't give away your position. Another big plus? The L-119 is noticeably lighter than its Soviet counterparts, a fact that logistic teams are very happy about. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories like this. Real war, real gear, no fluff. Western armies usually tow it with trucks or high-mobility vehicles, but that's not all. You can sling it under a UH-60 helicopter, or even fly two of them at once with a CH-47. And if the chopper can't land, no problem. They can airdrop it with parachutes. Ukraine isn't doing large-scale airborne ops just yet, but artillery units still benefit from how easy it is to move these guns around with a Humvee. Fast, nimble, gets the job done. It weighs 1,900 kilos. The D-30, almost a ton heavier. This thing you can literally move by hand. Two people are enough to spin it around. That weight advantage really shines in mobile defense. When Russian FPV drones are hunting you non-stop, or jets are dropping massive bombs in your sector, staying in one spot is just asking for trouble. How fast you move could mean life or death. We're just sitting there with the gun, the Humvee pulls up and boom, cabs incoming, that's it. Your life now depends on luck, or maybe an FPV spots the gun in the Humvee. That's a priority target for them. Distance from the front line used to mean something, not anymore. Thanks to FPVs, even rear positions aren't safe, and the D-30's extra range doesn't count for much. Up front, there's only one rule. You're a target. If you don't want to get hit, hide well or move fast. I'd rather hit the enemy more effectively than sit further back. There's barely a difference between being 12 or 15 kilometers away. Those long-range FPVs hit D-30s just the same, and they can hit our gun too. The L-119 Howitzer is pretty easy to maintain and doesn't give artillery crews much trouble. It rarely breaks down and usually only needs serious repairs after being hit by shrapnel, which, let's be honest, can happen to anyone in this war. All we do is clean it and oil it. If something major breaks, we just send it back to the company. The L-119 showed up on the front lines of the Russian-Ukrainian war back in 2022. Since then, they've been used both in defense and to support offensives against Russian positions. They're mostly used against infantry because it takes the shell 30 seconds to travel 10 kilometers, so it's hard to hit moving vehicles. We mostly aim at buildings, stationary equipment, troops, or clusters of enemy forces. But the more skilled Ukrainian gunners don't let that stop them. If drone operators give them the right coordinates, they're quick to fire even at fast-moving targets, like a Russian stormtrooper riding a quad bike. We've hit a Russian tractor with the Howitzer, and one spring, we scored a hit on a tank, all moving targets. We've also landed shots on Russian ATVs and motorcycles. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Ukraine's allies have delivered around 50 L-119s to the defense forces. From day one, they were deployed to support airborne units on the front lines, but every gun comes with its own age and barrel wear. The more you fire, the faster the barrel wears out, and the less accurate it becomes. To speed up repairs and keep these guns in the fight, Ukraine's government teamed up with global defense giant BAE Systems. The company has opened a local branch to service the howitzers, produce spare parts, and even manufacture new ones. That's a big deal. It gives hope that towed artillery isn't ready for retirement just yet, and still has a major role to play in future wars. In fact, Ukraine's experience has already made NATO armies rethink their assumptions. Before Russia's full-scale invasion, many NATO countries had been gradually phasing out towed artillery in favor of wheeled and tracked platforms. The Cold War was over, armies were downsizing, and new doctrines were being written for smaller local conflicts. Western engineers also aimed to protect the crews operating these guns. That became especially urgent with the rise of counter-battery radar systems, which can pinpoint enemy firing positions with brutal accuracy. The idea was that an armored capsule would keep crews safe, but modern warfare introduced a new threat: drones capable of detonating ammunition stockpiles. And that forced a serious rethink of how towed artillery fits into the battlefield. Unlike big self-propelled systems, towed howitzers are compact, and that means easier camouflage at well-prepared firing positions. Their ammo is stored separately, so a direct drone hit is less likely to cause a catastrophic explosion. Meanwhile, crews can quickly duck into shelters, often dug and reinforced by the artillery teams themselves. Towed systems also have another key advantage. They're much cheaper and simpler to produce than self-propelled guns. That matters a lot during wartime, when you need to replace losses and equip new units fast. And in that context, the L-119 stands out as a very practical choice. It's accurate, relatively affordable, and built to last. In short, it works. What topic should we cover next? Drop your ideas in the comments. We'll choose from the most liked ones.
We once pushed this machine to about 90 kilometers per hour in an emergency. The Czech DITA self-propelled gun looks like it came straight off an F1 track, not a military motor. But is speed really her only strong side, and everything else needs fixing? Here's what an artilleryman at the front says. It depends on the conditions, really. First off, it's new gear. Still pretty raw. Today, Ukrainian soldiers are going to tell the whole truth about the Dana M2 and its successor, the DITA. So how has Czech artillery held up in modern war? Find out by the end of the video. And believe it or not, the steering wheel in the Dana isn't on the left or the right. It's dead center, just like the auto union racers from the 1930s. Yeah, the wheels shifted toward the center, but it does have steering adjustment. The seat adjustments are minimal but comfy. It's semi-automatic. We've got high and low gears, and there's a turtle mode. And yes, we did compare this to a race car for a reason. Dana has a special off-road mode that works just like a rally vehicle. When the terrain's really bad, you switch on all the locks and hit turtle mode. And just like a turtle, it crawls forward slowly, all 8 wheels pulling it through. Early in the full-scale war, that speed and mobility helped a Dana crew escape Russian shelling from 152mm artillery. You just have to make sure you don't end up in the wrong place. Happened to me once. I stopped just 3 kilometers from the contact line. No FPV drones back then. You're rolling in a 12-ton vehicle. Then boom, the bridge is blown up, and you gotta turn back. Thank God. That was back in 2022. Now the front's crawling with FPV drones, Lancets, Molnias. No way you get that lucky anymore. Before we go on, smash that like button. It helps the algorithm recommend our channel to more people. Czech engineers built Dana on a Tatra chassis, which Ukrainian crews love, especially in spring and fall when rain turns roads into mud pits. 4 wheels turn, and the other 4 just roll straight. The turning radius is great. You can drive out of almost any spot. But the chassis isn't even the main event. Dana's ace is her powerful 152mm cannon. Some days are quiet, but then you get a day or two of hard fighting. We provide fire support, cover our guys when infantry's moving, or infantry with armor, when recon teams try to break through. Here's what it looks like when a Dana crew responds to a combat alert. As soon as we get the command target, in 3 seconds, we're in the vehicle and getting ready to roll. They've been ordered to hit a crossroads packed with Russian infantry. Just watch how fast they move. It's been under 5 minutes since we got the coordinates. We're already at the firing position. The commander is punching in the coordinates now, and we're about to send rounds downrange. The inside of the fighting compartment isn't as spacious as the German PzH 2000, but it's still functional and comfortable. Driver's seat is here. Gun commander sits here. I'll need to take off my flak vest. Can't squeeze in with it on. Every button does something specific. I have my own controls, and the driver has his. The crew feels safe inside, thanks to armored capsules shielding them from shrapnel and drones. There are 3 capsules, one for the driver and gun commander, another for the loader and gunner, and one more for the ammunition guy. But what really blew away the Ukrainian gunners is the accuracy this thing delivers. When you hit targets like this, Respect comes easy. First round lands within 20 meters of the target. Even if GPS and internet go down, the crew can operate without them. And if needed, it won't just be one shot. That's guaranteed. But the surprises don't stop there. Just think about this. The commander can actually fire the gun with his foot. Yep, you heard that right. Here's how it works under real combat conditions. He communicates with the loader and gunner. He talks to me too. We can all hear each other. It's all about full coordination. Targeting is fast. You can fire automatically. Just set 3 rounds, and it'll launch them on its own. The gunner can also fire manually, and the commander, he can trigger a shot with his foot. The Czech engineers didn't just build a beast. They gave it brains. Dana is packed with modern electronics. As long as the crew knows the basics and enters the coordinates correctly, the computer takes care of the rest. All adjustments are in meters. So let's say the first round lands 200 meters off target. You just type in left 200 meters and it'll adjust and fire there automatically. For a moment, we started thinking this thing doesn't even need people. If it could, it would probably fight the war by itself. If the systems are working, GPS, nav systems, then no manual input is needed. The gun commander just presses buttons and it does everything on its own. Of course, if something breaks, then yeah, you go manual. Make sure to subscribe so we don't lose touch. We bring you the most raw, real stories from the front lines of modern war. But despite all the tech, physical strength is still part of the job. You need strong arms not only to fire in the sector, but also to maintain the machine in the rear. You prep the charges. You open this hatch. And if you need a first or second charge, you pull out 1 bundle or 2, depending on what the system calls for. Dana holds 40 shells, all stored inside the vehicle. Moving that much metal isn't fun, but hey, that's the soldier's life. Shell casings are stored on one side, projectiles are on the other. This thing likes to move. It cools itself better while on the move. On the Russia-Ukraine front, there's never a shortage of targets for Dana. Ukrainian crews had to go through intensive training, and the real practice came in heavy combat. The Czechs train on this machine for 2 years. We had 2 months of training, and we're showing the same results. Been riding her for a year and 7 months now. More or less got the hang of it. Of course, under heavy loads, things sometimes break, but we fix it and keep going. Crews trained in Czech Republic are now instructors themselves, passing down technical skills and combat experience to the next generation. This guy was a reservist. Now, he's helping his team carry out complex missions. I was in the reserve. Life took a turn, and I ended up here, gave it a shot. The guys showed me what the loader does, what his tasks are. I tried it, and it clicked. No questions asked. Sure, we've praised the tech in this machine, but let's not forget, without a professional crew, it's just metal and mechanics. And this soldier says it best. We're the nervous system and the brain of this machine. Without us, it's just steel. But with us, it has a soul. We're so well coordinated, even though we sit in separate sections, we know exactly what the others are doing in each moment. Because veteran gunners are now training fresh crews, Ukraine can rotate Dana crews, which is critical to restore both physical and mental health. First major plus, it deploys fast. You can get out and back to the staging area in no time. There's plenty of work for this vehicle, and plenty of targets. We're constantly moving. If we're exhausted, another crew rotates in. That's how we roll. Dana isn't the only Czech SPG in Ukrainian service. Her successor, the 155mm DITA, became the first NATO standard heavy artillery issued to the Azov Brigade, and the gun commander has high hopes for this Predator. This cannon has a maximum range of 39 kilometers. It's 155 millimeters. This is the SPG we'll use to hit deep behind enemy lines, farther than any gun we've had before. Compared to Soviet-era gear, DITA feels like a different planet. Nearly every process is automated, allowing crews to carry out orders faster and safer. When you roll up to a firing position, you don't have to jump out and wave your hands to guide the driver, or point out where the barrel should face. Like with towed artillery, you don't do any of that. I just input all the data before the mission. I can preset the fire position and the target, add in the weather conditions in advance. Then the ballistic computer handles everything. It calculates distance to the target based on shell and charge type, adjusts the aiming angles, the sights, and even moves the barrel automatically. You don't even touch the barrel. Just press a button and it aligns itself. Loading is also automatic. The shell and charge are fed in by the system. All you do is insert the pyro cartridges into the loader rack. The Dana can also fire in MRSI mode. That's multiple rounds simultaneous impact. Think of it as the modern evolution of the old time on target concept. MRSI means a single gun can fire multiple shells that all land on the same target at the same time. This gun can do MRSI shots. You calculate the task, input the shell type, and the type of propellant. The gun then automatically calculates all the necessary angles. It might fire one shell in a high arc, then another with a different propellant and a lower trajectory, and then a third under a completely different angle. That changes flight times. Maybe the first round flies for 120 seconds, the next for 30 seconds, and the third for 60 seconds. The system times the shots so they all land in the same second, in the same spot. If the comms go to hell and GPS is jammed, Czech engineers have thought of that too. Thanks to smart tech, fire positions and routes can be pre-planned ahead of time. You can preload up to 3 firing positions into memory. Even if you're 40 or 50 kilometers away from the contact line, where GPS still works, you can program everything. Then, even if the enemy jams GPS during the mission, the system will follow the preloaded route. You can check your location against the map and keep working. Even if GPS goes down, well, you're still in the fight. Dana and DITA have earned their stripes at the front. They're modern, versatile, and tough enough to go head-to-head with Russian counterparts. Their electronics, armor, and mobility save lives. And their firepower helps stop enemy assaults day and night. So now, we want to hear from you. What's the most important advantage of these systems? The chassis, the armor, or the big gun? Drop your thoughts in the comments.